Good day everyone. Thank you for joining us again on No Straight Lines. Today we're taking a different turn. This is not our normal POV videos or a video of me recording on my daughter ride. It is a talk. It's our maybe first by the fireplace chats. Not something I've done before on this channel or any other channels for that matter. But there's a few things that I've noticed I'd like to share about working and riding with kids. Not just in the mountain biking world, but in the skiing and the snowboarding world. As you can tell by the shirt, I've been snowboarding for a while. I've been a snowboard instructor, I think, for 18 years now. So I've seen a few things on the hill. Hopefully I can translate that in a way that we can all share and improve our experiences for us, our family, and for the kids out there on the hill. So we're going to start off with a more mountain biking focus, but I will also throw in some other hits and misses related to skiing and snowboarding and probably generally any other activity you do with kids. A couple of videos that I've seen myself that are good for anybody riding with kids at any time, whether you're starting off, been riding for a while. There's the Lone Ranger, did one during the pandemic. Actually, all three of these came out during the pandemic. There's the Crashing Dad. Special shout out to him because in chatting back and forth after watching his video, I wouldn't say there's a private chat. He's never met me. He won't recognize me. Doubt he'll ever watch this video. Doubt any of these will ever watch this video. He gave me a little bit of encouragement and said I should do this. So 2 years later, I finally put everything together on paper, and I'm trying to walk through step by step my thoughts. So the Crashing Dad's got a good video out there on biking with kids. Scott Bikes made a good video on riding with kids. And there's a few things that they all talk about. One, check your gear, make sure you got snacks, make sure that the trails are appropriate, etc., etc. So I'm going to try to take a slightly different approach. First of all, how did we get started in mountain biking? We got started regular biking through here, through the side streets, through laneways. Then we went out to a local park, and they had some dirt trails there. Turns out we can't ride on dirt trails in that park, but that got us a taste of it. And then we started doing more and more of that. And then some friends of mine that I snowboard with, they went up to a place called Hardwood Hills. And they were doing some riding up there. They said it was a good place to get started, etc., etc. So my daughter was a little bit skeptical about hitting a specifically built area just for mountain biking. Because you walk online, you see the videos, they show you all the exciting stuff, you know, the steep descents, they show you the rock gardens, they show you the jumps. Well, we didn't do any of that before that, or at that time. We were just getting into the sport. So what made that place good for beginners was, number one, the trail names. If the trails are named like, Fun, for example, Nice and Easy, it's a lot easier to ride down these trails. And if they're called like Stretcher or Tsunami, those are, by the way, names of actual downhill ski trails in Ontario. So that encouraged her, because I said, look, they wouldn't have one called Little Pushers if it wasn't meant for little kids. So that got her a little bit more into the comfort zone. The next thing we did when we go out is make sure there's a washroom. And what do I mean by that? Whenever I get to a destination, especially after driving for like half hour, 45 minutes, or an hour, maybe it's a nervous thing, I don't know. Almost always we have to go to the washroom. Now, being a little girl, there's a lot of standards to go to the washroom, like it must be indoors, there must be water running, there must be paper. So I don't know what that's about. Those are her standards. So we like to check to make sure that there is a washroom, and that place did provide it. The other good thing about the place where we first started, I'll mention them again, Hardwood Hills. They're obviously not paying me. Again, they don't know who I am. If you tell them, hey, this guy said, they'll like look at you like I'm funny. It's just because that was where we went and we had a good experience there. And all the trails were rated from easiest to hardest, with a good description of what to expect on that trail. Versus the ski terrains where they're just in any order. There's just, the green circle, easiest, blue square, intermediate, black diamonds, are the advanced, and then there's double diamonds. In some cases you will see a red diamond, which is supposed to be expert. Some places will have an orange circle, which means it's a gravity zone, it's a terrain park. Terrain parks are just meant with jumps, other features like that. I'm trying to think, like a half pipe, rails in the ski world. In the mountain bike world, I don't even think they have an orange, or just called flow trails of jumps. So that was another good way of comforting her, because we knew the next trail to hit. When we went to Horseshoe for the first time, well, we accidentally went down the wrong trail. Like, we went down a service road thinking that was a green trail. They've improved the signage over the last few years. When we started to do the intermediate trails, they weren't sorted out that way. So we asked a few people, what's the next easiest trail? What's the next easiest trail? First person we asked was a nice trail, not necessarily the easiest trail. Second person who told us try this trail, yeah, it was exactly one step up. And I gotta say, Horseshoe, they've got the bike camp going on, which will probably be another video of mine. They've really improved their beginner trails in terms of diversity. So they've got one very simple. If you've never been mountain biking before, great introduction. If you've been like across country and you want to try downhill, that trail there is a great introduction. Everything you would see on like a blue level XC trail on a green downhill trail, because you're going downhill, you're going faster, the higher speeds. Great assimilation into the sports, which is what they're going for. So they've succeeded on that point. So I'm just checking my notes here, because I actually took notes as opposed to randomly speaking out. Snacks. Went to the washroom. You're going to get hungry. What type of snacks do we bring? We bring chocolate bars, candy bars. We bring fruits like watermelon slices. We cut up some cantaloupe. We bring apples, oranges. We also bring things like granola bars. Every type of kind of snack. Kids will crave what their body needs, mostly. What I've noticed with my daughter is that she will sometimes crave just a pure candy, just a pure chocolate bar. Sometimes she will go after the fruits. Sometimes she'll go for a granola bar. Just depends what her body needs at that point to grow. I personally, obviously, or not so obviously, I avoid the chocolates. I can't break those things down and digest them as quickly as I did in my younger days. So, how to get there? Make sure you know where you are. Check the trail map. Make sure you know what you're doing when you get there. Maybe I plan too much, myself personally. What I'm learning to do is when we get there, let her go out and be more free. Like, she made some friends at Horseshoe. Yes, we're there to mountain bike. And if it's not a race time, I let her take some time and go nuts. There's that whole unstructured play thing that kids just aren't doing enough of. And I got to learn to let go and let her be free, let her be wild, let her experience different things. Try out, just go out there and grow the experience. Not just the mountain biking experience, but the life experience. Just play randomly in the woods. When we were growing up, we used to just play with a ball. We can entertain ourselves with just a round ball. Like, let her go out there and, disconnect from the electronic world if you're connected, and just have down to back to basics fun in nature. It's one of those things you can do in mountain biking that you can't even do, or do very little of in skiing and snowboarding, because you'll get frostbite, for example. So during the summer, take a half an hour, go climb a rock, go jump off a tree. Just be a kid. So, but remember, know where the trails are, know where you are in the forest. I've been in some places where, can't remember the name of it, Pushling Twins Ponds, hope I pronounced it correctly. Going into the conservation area, highways on your left. If you want to come out, highways on your right. Even in the Don Valley, everything flows downhill to Lake Ontario. There's been a few times where, like, are we still in the Valley Network? Are we in some institution's backyard? And we went to Copeland Forest, for example, Bring Trail Forest. That place is huge. And after a while, things start looking a lot alike. Like, seriously, it's like I went down this trail, but was this where we turned rights? Or was it the other fork in the road that we turned rights? And even though they're 100 meters apart off the service road, When you go back on the main road, you know, a slightly different angle, you're talking hundreds of meters down the road. So, not that we got lost, we had trail forks, we did find our way back, everything was good. But be prepared. It's another reason why you should never cycle alone in general, unless you really know the area. So, standards, there is something called development of them, and it actually turns out it's something called the zone of proximal development. You want to push your kids so that they're always growing, they're always learning, and they're always developing. You don't want to push them too hard where they get frustrated with, I can't necessarily get this, or it's just like, I'm not having fun. Now, with mountain biking, well, let me step back. The reason why you don't want to turn them off to it. You want to keep like that warm glow going constantly. It's nice to have a hot fire of passion burning, but you don't want them to burn out too quick and too fast. So you want to keep that warm glow. And that's what I think the zone of proximal development means. It's the range where they can grow and develop the most. And that is different for every person. Different for every person in every field, in every activity as well. So for example, for drops, we started off just dropping off curbs on the local streets here. There's a park down the road. The curbs there are a bit thicker, 4 inches to 6 inches. You go to Horseshoe, for example, they now have the Smith drops. Yeah, I do actually, I wouldn't say necessarily promote, but I will talk about people who put money into helping my child develop her skills. Like the Smith drops, like Bateman Cycle, they help sponsor the races where we go to. So I don't mind saying, hey, going out to them because, you know, they put some dollars down to help my daughter develop. Why not go and patronize them? I actually don't do that when I see ads for myself, but I'll do it for my daughter for some reason. So that was a case where she's getting comfortable, and to bring her up to the next level when I can see she's nailing them. Not necessarily when she gets bored and she wants, because people at any age, when they get comfortable with something, they don't want to leave that comfort zone. So sometimes you got to give them a little poke or a little nudge to the next level. For some kids, it's giving them a bigger poke or nudge to the next level. There's nothing wrong. In fact, it's good to let kids fail. If they try something on their own, that's too difficult. I'll give you an example. It was a BC POV video, sorry. I flipped the letters around. And his trail, whatever it was, Stone Starlet, he did a whole series on that. In the end of it, there's a kid, I think he's like 15 or 17. He's going down one of these trails, one of these wooden features. It's a very, very difficult feature. I would never try that myself, or at least not in a few years. And he slips off and he falls. And of course there's the I told him so. But what is important is that he tried, he learned his limits, he did it in a safe, controlled manner, and now he knows what skills he needs to do and to bring upon next. Excuse me, my mouth is getting very dry. And that's what you want to do. You want to let them challenge, you want to let them grow, you want to let them fail so they can learn. I mean, we all know failure is a part of learning, but it's a part of learning that says you can almost do it. If you keep on trying, you will succeed. And that's part of that zone of proximal development, because if you succeed every time, you get an artificial impression of what you're really capable of, and you don't want to push yourself to what you can really do. So you want a lot of success, and you want some failure, and you want to digest that failure to learn how or what you need to learn next. So with that being said, there's a few things that I've seen on the ski hill particularly that I'm very uncomfortable with. For example, many years ago, this man, he was over 6 foot tall. I wouldn't say he was towering over me, but yeah, he was at least 4 inches taller than I am. And small child, the child was well under a meter tall. I'm going to say he was about 2 feet tall, 3 feet tall maybe like 3-4 years old. And there's a little jump. Now the jump was between my knee and my waist. And this little kid was the size of him. And Dad's like, oh, go on the jump, I'll take your picture. Yes, excuse me, you're providing encouragement for him, you're providing the guidance and direction. Where you need to improve is perspective. You need to understand that on maybe first or second day, you don't take anybody and tell them to go up a jump as tall as them. I mean, you're 6 foot tall. Would you want to go on a jump the first day on skis? You've never been on skis before, on a 6 foot high jump? Kid's crying. He's not having any fun. He's not learning. He's associating a negative emotion with the task at hand. That is a step toward failure in the long run. Maybe you got him up the hill. Maybe you got that great picture that day, but will you want to come out the second day? You want people to stick with the sports. And on the side note, one of the things that help people stick with sports is doing it with groups. You are, I believe I read somewhere around the 85% or 86 or 87%, in the upper 80% range of sticking with a physical activity if you do it with a group. Because you have to rely on each other. One thing I seen that was quite disturbing was this was at Centennial Park, that's closed down now, skiing. A fire truck is passing by. We'll just mute this for a second. So, fire truck is gone by now. He called his son the P word. Yeah. The kid may be 10, 11 years old. I understand kids these days, people these days are far too soft, far too sensitive. You can't take an insult. If you've ever driven a car, you've been insulted. So you have to learn how to take an insult. You got to learn to get some thick skin. You got to learn not everybody's going to call you what you want to be called when you want to be called. However, calling that child that name, I think, is a bit too much. Using that type of language in public, probably a bit too much. And the kid was obviously frustrated. You can see just from the look on his face, he just, not only was he not having fun, he'd rather be somewhere else. Just maybe he had a bad day at school, maybe he came from like hockey or swimming. So he's already tired, he's already frustrated, he's taking some skiing lessons on this hill where he's got to put up with a bunch of other ratty little kids. It's late at night, I think this was the last lesson of the day, so it's like 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night. It's his bedtime, he's just cranky, maybe hasn't eaten or didn't eat, ate in a rush, could be hungry. Understand that as well when you're talking with kids. That's the same way you're talking with other people. Pushing someone to do a run, sometimes it works. Sometimes you're tired. Being tired, you're more relaxed. You'll just settle down and say, hey, I'm just going to go with it, and things will click in. If you're tired, you're cranky, you've got a bunch of other issues, you're building up on that negative emotion, that negative experience, and that's not what you want to see with kids. That's not what you or anybody else to keep them with the sport, to keep them growing, to keep them in development, and so on and so forth. You as the parent, you should know your kids best. What I will say is be mindful of the child's perspective. Understand what your goal and objective is for them. Break down that goal and objective for them in a manner that they can understand so they can share the same goal. For example, mountain biking. Today we're going to work on drops, a foot, 18 inches. That's all we're going to do. You know, today we're going to work on berms better. If you're skiing and snowboarding world, today we're going to try this new blue trail. We're going to try to get 20 turns down this run. We're going to try to do 24 turns down that run. I want to see, turn side to side for a few runs. Explain to them why. We're going to be doing these drops to build your confidence on the course. Should you accidentally hit a drop and not realize it, we're going to be doing this number of turns so you can learn how to control the board, how to control your skis on steeper terrain, that type of thing, right? Because when you have an objective, when they have an objective you can share and they understand the exercise and the drill, it doesn't become an exercise and a drill. It becomes a step towards your own personal development. And kids want to grow and want to develop by nature. Last note is the GoPro and recording. You notice I share some videos with her, and this video is far too long already when I expected it to be. You don't see most of my trips. What I put online is a very specific portion of what's recorded. Not necessarily for the most views, not necessarily for the most hits or the most likes. It is what I am willing to share publicly for the rest of humanity for all of eternity. What goes online never goes offline. everything you say online will be used with respect to something, like good or bad, in your future at some point. So if there's something private about a family member, like I had some great shots at Bromount that I had to get rid of because I started mentioning other people's family members' name. And maybe her aunts don't want to be in a video. So we just filter that part out. I lost some footage, but that's life. It's more important that me and her have a good experience on the hill than it is to pop out a video. With that being said, you notice that there's less POV videos about her. And that's because sometimes she doesn't want to wear that harness. She doesn't want to wear the GoPro, and that's fine. You know, we're there to enjoy the sport, family activity, and mountain biking is an expensive sport, but it's one of those sports that the whole family can do together still. Just like skiing, it's an expensive sport, but everybody can go down a diamond ring. Everybody can do a drop. Everybody can hit a berm. Whereas when you look at basketball, it's like me and her playing basketball. I like to think that I'm the one that's going to win every time, right? So, I mean, there are some other physical sports you can play, like you play wrestle with your kids all the time, and that's actually a good thing. It's a very good thing for kids. And you can tone down your skills, but how do you tone down your skills of playing basketball or playing hockey? So that's why you see less videos of that. It's just she's not comfortable, doesn't want to wear it all the time. Sometimes I don't want to wear it. Sometimes we're just there to free ride and enjoy. So if you are doing this GoPro thing, remember, take the time and put your family's future ahead of making a video. And I think that's all I have to say. I'm just checking my notes. One thing that's been great for mountain biking and for skiing with my daughter, it's really been building up her confidence. And that's one thing that I gotta say, even adults, even me as myself, need to work on. So that's been a really good experience that way. It's a way that we spend time together away from electrical devices. And that's another great thing. There's been a lot of, I wouldn't call it small talk, but I wouldn't call it deep conversations, but there's been a lot of getting to know each other better times too on these trails. So anyway, hope you've learned something from this. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave your comments below. And yeah, I want to say like and subscribe for the first time. And remember, when you ride, no straight lines. Sometimes it's the curves and the bends in life that are better than the planned routes. Have a good night.